I don't want to dump on D&D. There's plenty of people who do that. D&D is a good system, but there's nothing about it that I feel it does great. Doing just standard campaigns and being paid for them is not enough to sustain yourself and your family. I believe in a very much thriving mindset where you have to be aiming to not only exist, but be able to push yourself forward. So I very much agree with you that just running campaigns is not enough. Find your niche, find out what you're really good at and what draws people in, and draw those people to you. Hammer on what you do well. I've talked to hundreds of game masters in the last few years, and I'm always shocked that most of them don't know what they do well. That's my best advice for paid GMs. Find out what you do really, really well. Get really good at that, and hyper focus to draw those people who enjoy it in. Just don't burn yourself out.
All right, everyone. Welcome to GM Philosophy. This is the channel where we empower game masters to run better games. And we are today continuing our interview series with Matthew. And I'm going to let him introduce himself a bit more. Matthew and I have barely spoken yet. I wanted to really have our conversation on camera. So we are getting ready to talk about some really awesome topics here. But Matthew, I'd love you to introduce yourself and kind of what you've been doing to the audience, just so that they can get an idea of who you are and what you're doing, what you're running, etc.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Matthew Pauze. I do paid storytelling for a living. I focus exclusively on non-D&D games, which that does narrow it down for anyone who's taken a brief look outside of D&D. But mostly right now, it's been Forged in the Dark, Chronicles of Darkness, and a few smaller known ones like Houses of the Blooded, working on something called Card Dive. And, I tend to run free teaching games every once in a while. There's a big event coming up in July for those interested of all sorts of things. But that kind of sums that up, I think.
Nice. Awesome. So what I'd like to do is just jump right into the so you're a pro game master and you run mostly, is it just mostly non-D&D or completely non-D&D?
I've run one D&D campaign since I started because my friends found out they could pay me to run games and they wanted to see what I ran D&D like. So other than that, I've completely avoided D&D for 7 years. 6 years as paid GM, but several years before that as well.
Okay, got you. So tell me about how you got into being a pro game master. Tell us that story, if you would.
Well, COVID hit, and I used to drive truck for a living by running games for decades before then. And I seen an article that someone in New York was doing paid storytelling. I figured, I got almost 30 years experience at that point. It should be possible. The whole 10,000 hours makes you professional at things, apparently. And I started from there. It was about 4 months before Start Playing became a website. And then I joined them, and I've been doing it since. I started with Mage the Awakening 2nd edition and Chronicles of Darkness in general, and it's just kind of spiraled from then.
How many games do you currently run?
Minimum 8. Usually I try to max out at 11 in a week. There's a point where I'm sure people have felt this, a burnout of anything you get too much of in a short period of time.
Do you do any marketing? Do you have social media, stuff like that? Or is it all on Start Playing, or like how do you get your players?
So I do a lot of things. I don't use stereotypical social media much other than just posting game ads, but I have a collab group of other paid GMs who we work together, all doing little bits and pieces here, bringing everyone to the same site. I use Start Playing right now as my home base. And I tend to run free one-shots once a month, or I'll double up some months, or we have our summer event in July where I force the collab all to run free games to demo things that are not D&D. They're happy. I'm happy. Everyone's happy. We'll just say that. But I don't really have a social media presence much. I do game summaries and 2 rant videos on YouTube. But other than that, mostly just advertise in different spots, connect with people like you and other paid GMs and other communities. Our server, when we post an ad there, goes out to other servers who've agreed to it. And when their ads go out, it comes to our server. So just kind of networking more than social media posts.
Nice. No, that makes sense. Speaking of which, everyone, we're going to be posting some links of Matt's in the description. Is probably definitely your, I'm assuming your start playing link or whatever else you usually share. Go ahead and tell us real quick so that we can get that described earlier in the video.
Some of the links I'll share probably, like you said, my start playing profile, a link to our event coming in July so people can play a bunch of free demos or do some workshops. And Tiger made us a nice little card that when you click on it, it goes to the links of all the different storytellers in the collab and their home bases, which I will dig up because I always forget to remember to keep that. It's somewhere on my
Nice.
computer.
Awesome. All right. So why non-D&D systems? Tell me about that.
Um, well, mostly because I'm somewhat spiteful. And in the 3.5 to 4th edition era, some documents were leaked where Wizards of the Coast decided that they were going to actively try and kill all other RPGs. And I hold on to spite forever. That said, I have run D&D. I've run every edition until they did 2024, at least at some point from first edition onwards. Uh, but D&D, I don't want to dump on D&D. There's plenty of people who do that. D&D is a good system, but there's nothing about it that I feel it does great. And I can see things in a lot of other systems that can hyper focus and do some things really, really well that D&D just doesn't do. So I don't want to say D&D is bad. There's a lot of other systems that get different vibes and different games and tell different stories in a different way that I feel they do much better than D&D. That said, I still think fourth edition D&D could make a wonderful game show someday.
A game show?
Like an American Gladiator story where the players are on a game show. I think that would be hilarious.
Okay, okay, nice. I was about to say, do you mean like Critical Role back when they
No,
were playing D&D?
no. No, I'm thinking back to American Gladiators when that was on TV, and it was competitive, athletic, but like a game show. I think fourth edition characters make wonderful contestants on something like that.
That's awesome. No, I love that. Okay, so what is your favorite system that you're running right now?
Oh, that I'm running. God, that's going to have a lot of players angry because there's two groups that really are adamant that their system is better. So I'm not going to say mage, even though one of those is the answer. Because both the games start with the word mage in it in the beginning, but can't have those groups trying to kill each other. So, geez, favorite game I'm running. Well, I'm going to be selfish and say Card Divers because it's the one I'm writing, and I have a playtest group for that, so I can use that as an excuse.
Okay, nice. What is it about that system that appeals to you?
It started as a play by design where we start with very basic mechanics, and every time we play, we introduce new mechanics or modify things until it gets the vibe of everyone wants. And that is entertaining for me, and I guess that group of players for the most part.
How interesting. Okay, I've never heard of this. So does that mean that every group, the mechanics are going to change?
It could until we have a solid book that's finished. Like there's a book that's being modified every time we do it. It's actually a term I heard from John Wick, the writer of Houses of the Blooded, who I've enjoyed his games, at least the ideas that come from them. They're an independent publisher, so I'm not going to speak on the book in general, but the book is always an interesting read, even if the mechanics keep changing partway through.
So this system is this tell me again what the name of this system is.
It's a system called Card Dive because I've been looking for years since I turned tabletop RPGs into my profession to get another hobby. And the closest I've got is listening to lit RPG books, which is a genre where people are usually trapped in a video game or video game mechanics come into it. And I thought it'd be an interesting experience, but I couldn't find a system that quite did it. Someone I know who's part of the collab wrote a open license system called Attack Dice, and I read it, and it's very close to a lot of things I wanted to try. It's very simple, and I thought it could be built differently. So I've kind of flavored it and did the game by design, and this is kind of what's coming out of it, where we have characters who collect cards that give them abilities or creatures they can summon. And it's kind of been a post-apocalyptic, I guess not post-apocalyptic, apocalyptic setting where things are starting to fall apart now, and they're at the cusp of it. But yeah, in general, it's just something I'm doing for fun. I might release it someday. I promise nothing in this interview.
Okay, got you. So this is a system that you are designing. You're actually
Um,
building this literally. Hello, friends. Jim Philosopher here. Thank you so much for tuning in for this interview. I hope you're enjoying it. With that being said, I just want to let you know that I do have a book. If you are a game master who loves to create emotional resonance in your games, then this is absolutely the book for you. It's called The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. This is my book I wrote in 2025 outlining how I create emotional resonance and emotional buy-in in my games. If you want to run the kinds of TTRPGs, D&D or whatever, that gets players actually emotionally invested, gets them wanting to come back again and again, gets them basically begging you to run another session. Like, please, let's play again soon. I can't wait for the next one. Then this is the book for you. I've been running games for over 24 years, and I've been a pro D&D game master and TTRPG content creator for several months now in 2026. And though I'm newer to the adventure of running pro games, it's going very well. And these are the secrets that help me to create games that players love. So with that being said, make sure you grab this link is in the description for about the price of a cup of coffee. You can learn all of my deepest, darkest secrets, tips, insights on how to make that happen. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the interview.
we had a core system of about 20 pages that someone else designed, and we're building off that. So very much like D&D third edition and fifth edition had open licenses. This system was released as an open license that anyone can use. I'm a big fan of that kind of licensing model where people are allowed to put their IPs into other systems, even if it's limited licensing, as long as people get to keep their own IP. There's many systems I'd love to work with, but they're closed systems, like there's no licensing for it. So I've made a pledge this year that I won't be reading any of those systems and might dissolve them completely from my library as I'm going forward, but that's just a personal thing.
Very interesting. Okay, so in your mind, when you're running these other systems, these non-D&D systems, I'm sure
Mhm.
that mechanics also probably factor in. But now hearing you talk about it, it almost sounds like there's a strong idealistic filter that you're using to select your systems. Like you just mentioned,
Mhm.
you may even rule out systems that don't have an open license, right? What do you think are the most important features or whatever aspects of a system that you look at if you're thinking, well, should I run this, right? What is your criteria across the board?
What am I going to enjoy if I use this system? Like if I want to tell a mystery story with a lot of supernatural modern fantasy, I'm going to use Mage the Awakening because it has specific mechanics that let character players through their characters identify a lot of clues at a glance. It gives them facts, not the truth that happened, so people can piece things together. If I want something that's a little more gritty and dark and more of a gothic horror feel, I'll probably grab something from the World of Darkness. Uh, Right now, I run two Mage the Ascension, which is World of Darkness, and three Mage the Awakening games, which is the first system I mentioned, where a lot of the mechanics are very close, but they are just different enough, and there's subsystems that make it very different. Um, Characters in Ascension often are a lot more squishy. So it's a lot more fragile. The horror feels a lot more real when something happens. And Awakening gives you a lot of clues and nitpicks at just a glance that characters can sit for part of a session just taking all their clues and try and figure out what's going on. So it really depends on the type of story and the type of players I have. Um, I also run Houses of the Blooded, which is a game about nobles and building provinces. So if people don't like kingdom building, they're really going to hate playing that game. So a lot of it comes to the type of story I'm trying to tell, and I try and tell enough different stories that I never feel burnout. I know some people want to do the same thing all the time, and that helps them with their burnout, but I'm very much the other end of the spectrum where by doing games that are significantly enough different and give off different vibes, it kind of keeps me going.
I see. Very interesting. Okay. What are you using for a VTT? Or are these games all in person? I'm assuming you're
No,
going virtual. Yeah.
no, almost all my games are virtual, and I use Foundry. I found Foundry, well, Foundry's a lot easier to program than Roll20 when I had to make custom character sheets for certain games.
Nice. That makes sense, actually. Okay. Okay. So, what do you do for maps, designs? Do you do music? Tell us a little bit about how you're putting together your virtual games.
It's going to vary from system to system. Games like Dagger Hearts, I'm going to have a lot of maps. the environmental music on the maps and the walls and the setting up of them. I have Dungeon Alchemist for if I need to generate my own maps that I don't have. So that kind of game is going to focus much more on that. Games, like I mentioned before, Ascension, combat maps are almost when you have people who can literally bend space and time, combat maps don't work very well. So I use make a lot more like scene cards where I'll have nine or ten scenes on an image and use walls so the players only see the scene they're in. Um, Music's a big component. Some of them I use a lot more music. Some it's usually the same like three songs that play in the background. If it's just a minor thing, I use a lot of Foundry modules. Like right now, I use a theater insert module in almost all my games. So when they're talking to an NPC, it pops up that NPC's name, their emotions, a certain coloration to their name and style to kind of give off the vibes of that character. A lot of modules now that I think about it. And clocks. I like using clocks from Forge in the Dark in everything. One of my player groups have complained to the point that I've had to remove them. So might like
Really?
that mechanic too much.
So when you say clocks, would you describe that for those in the audience who maybe
Oh,
aren't
geez.
familiar with that?
Yeah. So clocks have been introduced in a number of newer games going back, I say newer, 10 years going forward. Um, Clocks are a narrative counter. In some games, there's going to be different triggers that move them up or down, but it's something that the players know, but the characters don't necessarily know. So I've seen some people in D&D use it that every time a long rest happens, the clock ticks up if they're on a timer to save someone. Now the players know if that clock ticks up and fills, they'll no longer be savable, but the characters might not. So it creates a outside part of urgency. Games like Forge in the Dark use a lot of clocks, as does Daggerheart. Um, I think Power by the Apocalypse, not Power by the Apocalypse, Apocalypse World, the first Power by the Apocalypse game was the first time that clocks were introduced in a system, but I could be wrong. There was stress counters that kind of work like clocks introduced in the first or second edition of Fate. Sorry, I do a lot of history stuff too, but it's not always accurate. If this bores people, just skip ahead. Uh, so yeah, clock mechanics. I like them. Not everyone does. Some people, almost everyone has the same reaction. The group that doesn't felt that the clocks made the game too simple. It made it so the mystery was gone and they could just plan around the clocks. So it didn't actually create the sense of urgency it does in a lot of people, which was interesting.
Very interesting. That is interesting. Okay, so when you are deciding on, like let's say you're gonna start up a new game. Okay, like
Mhm.
tomorrow you're like, I'm gonna launch a new game, right? What today is gonna lead to you deciding to run a certain system? Are you like favoring a certain system right now? I mean, we've talked about some of your favorites, or what would be the criteria that you'd use to decide that?
Purpose of the game. Is this a paid game? Is this a game to experiment with mechanics? Is this a game to teach myself? The system is usually what it is. If I really want to learn a system, I would usually run, like I said, how I do free demo games. That's usually me learning the system after I've read it and done the input for it. Um, so if I was to go with that, I'd probably do Cthulhu Tech, the Shadow War game. Um, if it's a paid game, then it's what I think people are going to want to see and is not going to be too close to one of the games I'm already running. Like I run a Mage the Awakening seventh in the seventh sea setting. I'm not going to run that for a public game because it's not likely to recruit people, unfortunately. Um, so it's got to be something that will recruit and something that is going to be interesting to people. And then the last one, if I really want to test out a mechanic, I will sometimes do like a mini vignette of 3 or 4 sessions that some of my private groups really enjoy, which will help me both test out a mechanic, give them a nice experience, and solidify my mind in the subsystem or system I need to know before I write this down. But a lot of
Gotcha.
that, oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go for it.
I was going to say a lot of that last one has been mostly the end of 2025 and this year, where I've gotten more into design, just test out new hobbies.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So, what when you are, as a GM, I would like to. bounce back a minute to number of games run, and I
Mhm.
would like to talk for a minute about organization. So you're running more games than on a week than I typically find. Even the pro game masters I've talked to generally are not running 8 to 11 weekly games. Right? I've talked to GMs who are running 11 bi-weekly games. They stagger. I've talked to GMs who are running 5 games a week. I run 5 games a week right now. I think I'm gonna launch a sixth one later on this month when I finish my homebrew system. I'm designing the player handbook for my superhero system right now that I'm very pumped about. But like
Nice.
with that being said, though, do you find that it gets hard to track those campaigns? I find that I just had to redo my organizational system because I was like, I can't find anything I'm looking for. I had it all together and I had to separate it all, like, and create new desktops on my VTT. How do you keep things organized with that many games?
So everything mechanically, I keep in compendiums. Everything story wise, I keep notes and I do summary videos at the end of every session that I put on YouTube that a lot of the players enjoy, where really it's just secretly to remind me what's going on.
Isn't that
Because
the truth?
if it's a bi-weekly game, I've run 15 games in between,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can be like it's only 2 weeks ago, but what were we doing? But yeah, for the most part, a combination of videos, some of my more complex games, like the one with all the clues, I have most of the mysteries written out in my own documents that I can reference. And I keep track of what's about the world, not what the characters know. And I usually let my players know this. So a lot of them keep their own notes. That way, I only have to remember what I know and what the world knows, and not necessarily what they do. That's a big one. But yeah,
That's a lot more
combination of
sustainable.
yeah, I used to do paper notes for the first couple of years, and after the mountain of binders I had, that was unsustainable.
Do you do things like, do you track your players' ammo, the stuff they're carrying, or do you just trust your players for that? What's your take on that?
If I want to track ammo, I will automate it on the table.
Okay.
Like most of my modern fantasy games that use ammo, the character sheets are capable of doing it when they use the item. It'll just subtract the ammo or the mana or what have you. Um, for some of the things I can't get that programmed in, I'll watch a little closer, but yeah, automation. Automation is my friend. In real life games, when people get ammo, I will hand them a card with the number of ticks of ammo on it, and they can cross it off as they're going.
Hello, friends. Jim Philosopher here. Listen, I have been a pro paid game master for several months now. I started my business in January of 2026, and then I went full time in March. How did I do it? I actually wrote a book all about that, the Pro GM's Guide. Listen, this book I wrote detailing how I went from having zero pro games at all to going full time running pro games. Now, keep in mind, running pro games isn't my only business. I have 5 full pro games going right now. I also do the YouTube, obviously, and I sell products. With that being said, I am highly confident that with the methods I've outlined in this book, and of course, this book is kind of based on using start playing games as your platform, but you do not have to do that. There are ways to get around that, and this book will be useful to you even if you're not using start playing, but it's specifically written with start playing in mind. And if you want to turn your love for the hobby, your talent for running games into either a like beneficial side hustle or even consider going full time, then this is the book for you. All the crucial tips, tricks, trial and error, all the stuff I learned trying to figure out how to make it happen, I have put into this book. If you have aspirations of being a pro game master, this is absolutely something you need to add to your bookshelf. Grab this. Link is in the description for about the price of 2 cups of coffee. You can add this to your repertoire. Once again, thank you so much for watching the channel and the interview. And now let's get back to it.
So I don't really track that, but it is tracked.
I see. No, that makes sense. Totally. All right. So here's what I want to ask you next. As someone who has run a lot of different systems, not just D&D and stuff, what do you think most game masters in this space, maybe pro side or even friends and family side, what do you think most GMs are maybe missing or overlooking that could make their games better?
Man, that's a tough question. I'd have different answers for either of those. For friends and family, find out what the people enjoy that you all agree on. Do a survey. Um, That's actually not bad for paid either. For paid, find your niche, find out what you're really good at and what draws people in, and draw those people to you. Hammer on what you do well. I've talked to hundreds of game masters in the last few years, and I'm always shocked that most of them don't know what they do well. But like that's my best advice for paid GMs. Find out what you do really, really well. Get really good at that, and hyper focus to draw those people who enjoy it in. Just don't burn yourself out. Also, you can always be working on other skills. If you're a paid GM, you definitely should develop different kinds of skills. I am a terrible voice actor, but I can still change my cadence, representing different characters, make notes of how they sound, stuff like that. And I feel that's my weakest point. But there's exercises for everything. Um, I'm very much of the mindset that you should always be growing, adapting in what you love, getting better, even if it's uncomfortable. But that's not a mindset everyone has. I'm getting off topic again. Find your niche and push that. You will draw people to you. It's worked for everyone I've seen really dive into that. But that said, I don't run D&D. So a lot of my advice is, I have been told, is not D&D enough related to help them. But I still think there's facets of D&D you could super focus on, whether it's subclass design, battle maps, making combats interesting and not just hitting back and forth. I will not dump on D&D today. As much as people have encouraged me, I will not.
Fair, very fair. What do you think is the thing that most game masters are, basically overvaluing? Like they think that this is the big thing that they should do, but actually it's not as important as they think it is. Maybe especially newer game masters. What would you answer?
Knowing the rules inside note, knowing every rule call, being able to make a call in the moment, super important, but knowing every rule inside and out of every subsystem is not, as long as you're honest with your troop at the beginning. A lot of people, especially if you're learning a new system, as long as you have the other skills of telling an interesting story, will forgive a lot. That said, there are players out there who are there to play by mechanics and super focus on that. Those players are going to want you to know the rules inside and out. Those players are the ones who want to see the competition at the table. And if that's your crew, then you should learn the rules inside and out. But otherwise, just be clear with people that you're here to tell a good story. The rules are secondary to that. But still make notes of the rules you don't know after you make a call. Go back and learn them over the week or 2 weeks or month. I don't know how people schedule games anymore. I don't live in the real world anymore. And take 20 minutes a week and learn that system.
Very nice. Okay, I'd like to shift gears back to the business side of it for just a minute. I would
Absolutely.
like to. So I've been talking a lot on my channel about the how the economic model of running games is kind of rough for scalability. Okay, so like, and you've maybe heard me talk about
Yeah.
this because no matter how you shake it down, um, generally pro GMs still get themselves into this box where they have to basically work a number of hours for a certain amount of dollars, right? Now, this is not the worst model in the world. Most jobs fall into this model, right? Um, However, I would like to hear what you think about that, and especially in terms of like the long term sustainability of that model as a career choice into the long term. Like people are thinking, I want to go to retirement or maybe beyond running games and set my life up for success that way, right? Now I have a on my channel, I make no secret of the fact that I believe there has to be a varied approach. So running games is one element of my business, scaling my social media, and then leveraging that attention to other things like selling book products, maybe doing events in the future, these types of things, right? So I've got like different avenues that I'm working with. And to me, that's how I make the economics work, right? To me, but I'm very curious about as another pro game master, what your take is on that.
Doing just standard campaigns and being paid for them is not enough to sustain yourself and your family. Um, I believe in a very much thriving mindset where you have to be aiming to not only exist, but be able to push yourself forward. So I very much agree with you that just running campaigns is not enough. In addition, myself, I do local events with charities and other things. For those who don't know, if you're not part of a nonprofit, you can work for nonprofits for money or to donate time and rebates for. I shouldn't say this because I don't know if this is true in the American tax law, but it is true in Canada that you can donate your time to get tax certificates and write offs and stuff like that. Doing big events can help with that. Secondly, you should do extra things. I am terrible at social media. I will never make money from my YouTube channel. It's there for my summary videos and to talk to people who give me death threats. Um, but I am producing products. I am doing little minor things that all tie back to my campaigns in one way or another. My current Ashes campaign, which is the short form because I can't remember the name of it. I will flash it in the background because that's how I keep track of the names. From the Ashes. From the Ashes. There we are. I did an entire setup primer, which I'll be releasing for people as a small booklet. I started Spiteful Ink, which hasn't released any official product yet, but we are writing for a lot of games that don't have a lot of support from their main company anymore. A lot of people call them dead games. One of the writers insists I call them completed games, even though I think that's a lie because we wouldn't be writing if the game was completed. Um, but yeah, you need to diversify. I once in a while do workshops, paid workshops, sometimes free workshops. I also get tips from a lot of these things. I have 4 private groups that are very kind and tip me extra when I do crazy things and crazy events for them. Um, so yeah, just doing campaigns and just trying to fill seats and start playing. Don't starve yourself. Don't do that. Artists don't deserve to starve. Um, I say artists. We are artists. We are creatives of some kind, um, and that's both highly valued and not valued at all in the economy. So make sure you can eat. I also get to cheat because I live in Canada and the dollar exchange is very different. So I get to run my games a little cheaper, and I know I can do that because of the exchange rate. Use every advantage you have to a certain point, as long as you're not hurting anyone. That's the big thing, at least in my mind. Um, I'm getting off topic again. Know your niche, push it to develop your foundation, then start working with others. You can go fast by yourself, you can go far with a group.
Very nice. I love that. All right. You mentioned, game masters being artists, and I think that there is a little bit of debate about this. I think that some people have different ideas about this. Personally, I believe that engaging in a TTRPG is a form of artwork. It is, I believe it is for the players as well as for the game master. I believe it is a form of intellectual, collaborative, ephemeral art where there's like a value in the experience of creation of it, and there's nothing quite like that. Like even if you record it and listen to it later, it's going to be a different experience than it was in creating it, right? And that's part of the enjoyment and the experience of creating. So I believe it's actually its own type of art that sort of exists somewhere in between theater improv, novel writing, and combat board games. So it's like somewhere kind of in the Venn diagram of that. With that being said, I'm very interested to hear your take on this. Is it art, and to what extent is it, and how would you maybe classify it or value it? I'm very interested to hear your take on that.
That depends. I've heard 2 different definitions of what art is. One definition is art is something that can be codified, packaged, and sold, and leave something physical behind. If that's the definition we're using, then I don't think this is an art. But there's the more commonly accepted one that all creative endeavors are an art of some kind, whether it's writing, like you said, theater work, stuff like that. And if that's the case, then absolutely, running games, experiencing games, and all that is a form of artwork. There's no nailed down solution on how this runs, which helps classify it as art and how to be successful with it. I am told I know half my strategies are advertised as being terrible ideas. Um, but yeah, no, it's like one of my first players when I started doing this as a paid GM was very insistent that storytelling and running tables is an art form. And it's kind of stuck with me since then because I never thought of it that way in my years before that as an art. It was just a hobby, something I enjoyed, and seeing people experience emotions has always been a forte. I remember a LARP I ran at one point for 2 years that one of the players, when their character story completed, they broke down to happy tears for a good 15 minutes. And that's one of the best experiences I've ever had. Most rewarding, maybe not best, but most rewarding I've ever felt, seeing that moment happen. So, yeah, and art is about inspiring emotion, which I feel games do.
Yeah, 100%. And those moments of emotion are very real, you know.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's different emotions, even in the moment, like getting players actually get very angry at the villain, right? It's like, you know, like, even that's a very
Love that.
it's a very emotional thing, and it is a very real experience. It also is a really great sign that your game is going well, that they're that into it, like they actually have feelings about this villain. It's not even you, like it's directed at this concept of an NPC that, you know, you're running, but it's real enough that they have actual real feelings about it. They might hate this person, but then this NPC you're running, they love this person, right? Like they almost like, I mean, they would almost like step in front of the danger for this person, right? Um, anyway, yeah.
Sometimes they're the same NPC.
Sometimes, oh yeah, tragically so, maybe.
Uh, uh,
What do you think your forte is? Like you've mentioned several times, find your niche, find what you do well, find what the players enjoy about your games, double down on that. What is your field of expertise within the field of running games?
for the most part, with the exception of maybe one group who I just think they're smarter than me. That's all. Um, Finding the right system and subsystems to tell the story and give the experience I want to the players. I feel not that I'm 100% great at game design, but I feel that's where my strength is seeing these systems and being able to get the emotions and story beats I want to get out of them having the impact that I expect them to do. Um, a lot of the players I have tell me that my expertise is creating a diverse cast of NPCs that feel real. I feel that's secondary to this first talent. Um, People tell me I'm good at writing mysteries. I feel that is not true. I just feel that people don't always follow the clues that are dropped. They're not that mysterious. People are just people. um, hmm. God, advertise myself. I've been doing this for 6 years. I'm still terrible at promoting myself. Game design. We're just going to cheat. I'm great at game design. I will lie if I have to. That's what I'm focusing on this year. That's what I'm great at.
Okay, nice. And then, okay, so sorry, I'm going to even go deeper here. I would like to go a little
Yeah.
deeper. How do you define game design? Like, what would you call what stuff fits into that?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. Anything you can turn into a supplement that is just not setting material. So anything with deep diving mechanics, this can be building NPCs, this can be building subsystems, which I will build a subsystem for community building in any game given the opportunity and time to do, as well as domain play, which is either building a business, a country, a community, stuff like that. All that falls into game design. Most supplements, like I said, unless it's just strictly a setting book, everything in there would be game design to a point. I'd like to build custom stats in that to fit the story and the characters, to give them unique challenges or to make a scene interesting. I like to add material to games that don't have it, or only have limited options, unless that's the entire point. Um, I'm always adding to systems that I end up working with. This is one of the reasons I'm moving to more open or limited licensing games when I can. Yeah, almost everything. Everything falls into game design other than building the core mechanics, unless you're building something from scratch. That's not a helpful answer.
Well, that gives a
Game
lot
design.
of clarification. I feel like I feel like what you're describing is the ability to, when you say game design, it's like you have maybe a chassis, which is the system you're running. But then you take it and you say, okay, now we're going to make this into the real thing, like what we're actually going to play with. Let's build on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Do you ever find that the prep gets too extreme with that approach? When you keep adding things, and then of course you need to track these things, are you spending as much time on prep as in the game, or how do you manage that?
So for my system, because I will over prep if I don't stop myself, I will do 8 hours to build the game. This is not input of rules and stuff like that. All that is done way ahead of time before I ever do a campaign. I will do 8 hours of design, coming up with things, and then about 1 hour per game after the session has happened. That includes the 10 minutes to do the summary video, anything I have to research, which is usually never more than 20 minutes. And then the rest is spent on either prepping new things or finding old things that I missed and so on. If an NPC, a throwaway NPC, they want to go back to it, I will flesh it out more. But I limit myself to 1 hour per game unless it's some kind of emergency. Like I realize I've been running a certain subsystem wrong for 4 years and someone points it out. Or if I have to read clarification because maybe the writer was on acid when they wrote the core book. I don't have
Very,
proof of that. I could just assume with which one of my players will know which game I'm talking about, even if they're not in it.
these become very niche problems at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very,
But
very
yeah,
nice.
like I said, 1 hour per game to prevent, unless I take one day a week, which is my free day. And if I am driven to do something and I have this burning need, then I will do it then. But it's never a requirement.
When you say take one day a week, do you mean you take a day off, or is like a
Yeah.
personal day, or what do you mean? Okay, tell
Yeah,
us
like a
about that.
weekend.
Okay.
Um, well, I will usually nominate one day because I have 3 kids. They deserve time too. But I will take one day to myself. My game days tend to be from Friday to Monday. And then I will usually spend most of Wednesday working on either writing or working on my Spiteful Ink publishing company. And then Thursday is all my extra stuff, whether it's interviews or videos I want to make that's extra. And then Tuesday is mostly set aside to do stuff around the house and kids. But Thursday is usually my day off. Like this interview is something I wanted to do. That's why I'm here. There's nothing I'm going to do today I don't want to do.
Awesome. Okay. Very interesting. So, I think that this to me falls very much in line with what you're kind of talking about before, which is, you know, take care of yourself. You know, don't starve yourself, which is kind of a what I'm noticing is maybe a series of abundance mindset belief systems that you seem to display that I would say are very good and that everyone should embrace.
I mean, blue water tactics, which I have to explain every time I bring this up, that there is an abundance of work out there. You just have to find it. You should never cut someone else down so you can move ahead, is kind of my mindset in general in life. Um, I don't run games because I need to make money. I charge money for games so I can run more of them.
Yeah, value first mindset.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, everybody, Matthew is going to be putting some links in the description. Make sure that you check out all the links to his stuff. But before we get done, Matthew, I want to end this interview with your number one piece of advice to new game masters out there. If you're going to give them one piece of advice to help them get better at the craft, what would it be?
Run more games, run more different games. Every system can teach you something, even terrible ones.
Excellent, excellent. Well said. All right, Matthew, thank you once again for being on the show. Everyone, this is GM Philosophy, where the goal is to empower game masters to run better games. Make sure to roll some D100s for me at your next game, and I will see you, awesome people, on the next one.